Hello everyone, and welcome to the Commander's Forge. I am Andy Bentley, and I am the host here, and the Commander's Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and basically anything else that I feel I need to talk about. Now, today's episode is going to start with a slightly heavier topic. In one of the Discords I'm in, there was an argument yesterday about using the word tribal in Commander and Magic in general, and they brought up very valid points. And somebody ended up getting banned because they argued against it, and it sounded very racist adjacent. But I think they brought up a good point, the first person, that we don't need to use that word. And so I found a couple substitutes, and I'm going to weigh in on which ones I think we could use going forward. First up, we have clan. Now, nice short word, but I feel like this one is also going to carry negative connotations if you think about it. After that, we have band, which not my favorite, and most times when I think of a band in like a fantasy setting, it's like a band of brigands or like, bad people. So look at the next one. We have faction. I guess faction could work, but again, faction kind of doesn't sound right to me. I don't know. It just doesn't fit right for me. But as I was going through all of these different words, I found one that I actually kind of liked. Sect. As in like a sector. So from now on, you will hear me refer to anything that is playing a high mass of one type of creature as a sect. So when I am playing dragons, I am playing dragon sect. And this is going to be my stance moving forward. We don't need to dig up old scars. We can just be respectful of everybody and continue playing the game that we love. Well, I really don't want this part to go on much longer, so I think I'm just going to cut myself off now, and we'll pick this up in the second half. Hey, did you know that for as little as $1 a month, you can help support this podcast? All you have to do is go to patreon.com/commandersforge, and that is CMDR_forge. That's it. That's all I got to say about it. If you want to help support the podcast, you can go there. Alright, welcome back. Now, the second part of the podcast, I want to talk about the spoilers, but not necessarily all the spoilers that came out from the Midnight Hunt Innistrad set. Namely, I want to talk about one spoiler. Wrenn and 7. Legendary Planeswalker, 5 loyalty for 3 green, has a +1 to reveal the top 4 cards of your library and put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest of the cards into your graveyard. It has a 0 to put any number of lands from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. -3 to create a green tree folk creature token with reach, and this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. And -8, return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem with, you have no maximum hand size. Now, The real reason I want to talk about this is because, well, one, it's not often that Yumori gets another planeswalker that kind of does what he wants. Being a control deck, the ability to put a bunch of lands into our hand and play a bunch of lands if we have them is going to be perfect for that deck. But the other reason is I'm building Tasigur the Golden Fang. And I'm building him as like a turns land deck. Meaning he's going to take turns, but his main way to win the game is going to be animating his lands and attacking. So he's going to have a couple of planeswalkers in there to help with this. Namely Nissa, Who Shakes the World, and now Wrenn and 7. And that, I get it's just, it seems a little early for the spoilers, and I mean, it is. I don't think spoiler season ever really ends anymore. There's always something new. So, hey, if you're ever feeling a little overwhelmed with it, feel free to just tune it out for a little bit. Just do you, whatever makes you happy. That said, I took my break. I wasn't in a very good place mentally for most of June and July. And I'm trying to get back up to speed. And that means I have a couple of decks that I want to build to get back into it. Last week I talked about Rionia. I'm building a second version of her, and as soon as I have it built and played, I will be doing a nice little rundown here. Of course, I just talked about Tasigur, which cannibalized another deck to kind of come into fruition. And the other one I'm working on right now is Kalane the Reclusive Painter. But I'm going to build it as a secret Magda deck. So, Kawain is a 1/2 half-elf bard for a black and a red. And when they enter the battlefield, they create a treasure token, and other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each mana from a treasure spent to cast them. So I had kind of this idea of lieutenants in the deck. The first one being Gadrak the Crown Scourge. Dragon, 5/4, 2 and a red, flying, can't attack unless you control 4 or more artifacts, but at the beginning of your end step you create a treasure token for each non-token creature that died this turn. Vargoth, the Bloodsky Sire. Demon Rogue, 2/3, 2 and a black, Death Touch, Boast, 1 and a black. Target player searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and put that card on top of it. Chainer, Nightmare Adept. Human Minion, 3/2 for 2 black red. You can discard a card to cast a creature card from your graveyard this turn. Activate this ability only once per turn. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if you didn't cast it from your hand, it gains haste until your next turn. And then, of course, Magda, Brazen Outlaw. Dwarf Berserker, 2/1 for 1 and a red. Other dwarves get +1/+0. Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token. You can sacrifice 5 treasures to search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put that card onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. So we're going to run Maskwood Nexus as a way to facilitate turning everything into a dwarf. The best part is, if I play her and have 5 treasures, I could just immediately sacrifice them to find the Masswood Nexus. We're going to be running some other tutors, some other recursion. The main goal is going to be getting as many treasures onto the field as possible, and just kind of making some giant creatures. But yeah, that's kind of what I have in the works for right now. As always, I still have the IRS breathing down my neck, so if you want to help with that, the GoFundMe is in my link tree. So is my Patreon if you want to support me on a higher level. And if you're enjoying it, leave a like wherever you're listening to it, whether that be YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, any of those. And yeah, I will see you next time. That brings us to the end of the podcast. I would like to thank Nate and Erica Jacobs for designing my logo, and Cody Malpe and Ian Foss for allowing me to use a sample of music from their band, The Crypt. The podcast can be found on YouTube by searching Commander's Forge. The podcast is Commander's Forge, that is CMDR_Forge on Twitter. I can be found on Twitter at BentzMr, that is BENTZMR. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time, and until then, here's to fun games and sick plays.